The Vanguard was a joke when it arrived at the galactic fleet. Not just outdated, but pathetic. Corroded metal bolted together like something pulled from a scrapyard, with none of the smooth lines or advanced tech of other alien ships. The commanders even gave it a cruel nickname, the Junkyard Whale. Gamblers placed money that it wouldn't survive a single battle. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the bridge, a worn man with hard eyes and a voice rough as concrete. His record was flawless, but he carried the weight of someone who'd made tough calls and paid the price. His crew matched the ship perfectly. Soldiers rejected by other forces, engineers who broke the rules trying to improve things, fighters with spotty records, and a pilot still wearing a leather jacket from centuries past. Everyone saw the Vanguard as Earth's embarrassment, a slow symbol of desperation. While other civilizations flew sleek organic vessels or ships made of liquid crystal, Earth sent this relic. Its nuclear core was second-hand, and its hull was pieced together from mining equipment and old freighter parts. When the Urech invaded, their assault was horrifying. These creatures were nightmares, machines fused with organic tissue controlled by an ancient hive AI. They didn't conquer planets. They swallowed them whole. Worlds fell in hours. Civilizations vanished in weeks. Still, the Galactic Union gave the Vanguard a pointless job, patrolling empty sectors while real battles happened far away. Hale didn't complain. He just looked at his second officer, Lieutenant Ramy, sharp-minded and quick-tempered, and said, "Let them joke. We know what we have." The Vanguard's crew understood what others missed. This ship had been stripped down and rebuilt with brutal efficiency. Her skin was 3 layers of titanium bonded with shock-absorbing gel. Her cannons fired rounds that could crack battle cruisers open. Everything ran on switches and dials, completely mechanical, immune to hacking. And buried deep inside, shielded by tons of lead, was something worse than any gun. Project Cassandra. Not a traditional weapon, but humanity's secret mistake. Something so dangerous that Earth had wanted to forget it ever existed. The joke turned bloody when the Union's first fleet got torn apart in the Olan Belt. 500 ships destroyed in just 6 minutes. The Urech didn't just destroy things. They infected systems, took control of computers, turned fleets against themselves. But the Vanguard was invisible to them. No electronic signals, no digital systems to hack. Just dead silence and mechanical noise. New orders came through on a printout. The Vanguard was being moved to the front lines. Hale showed no reaction. He stared at the empty space beyond the window and said quietly, "Time to show them what we are. Wake up the engines. Activate Project Cassandra. Let's make sure they notice us." Below deck, an engineer turned an old steel key. The lights flickered. The ship shuddered. Deep in her guts, something began to wake. The Vanguard might be slow, but she was built for one purpose only: to be the final nightmare anyone would ever face. The hull groaned as ancient systems powered up, shaking off decades of dormancy. An alarm that hadn't wailed in years suddenly screamed to life, its cry echoing through every corridor. Marcus Hale watched the tactical display showing the Union fleet clustered near a dead moon. Half their ships were damaged. The rest looked broken. "They're panicked," Ramy muttered, arms crossed. "Every ship is running backup systems on top of backup systems. They're basically crashing and rebooting constantly. That's what fear does," Hale said. "But fear without a plan is just chaos." Commander Knox, a scarred soldier with a metal spine and 2 missing fingers, entered the bridge. "Cassandra's warming up. The safety ring is holding. But remember, once we use this, we're on borrowed time." Hale nodded. "That's exactly what I'm counting on." He never explained his thinking until the last second. Ramy hated that about him. But she'd served long enough to know that when Hale made a decision, it would be either brilliant or insane, probably both. The Vanguard moved toward the edge of the fleet. Other ships shifted away like they were avoiding plague. Some turned off their communications so they wouldn't be linked to this embarrassment when the next attack came. On the main screen, distant lights began to blink. Urech scouts. Horrible mechanical spiders with plasma-burned legs, machines that left nothing behind but dead bodies and radio noise. They didn't fly in formation. They swarmed like insects, too fast and too wild for normal targeting systems. "They're coming," Knox said darkly. Hale's voice was calm. "Hold your fire. Not yet." A young officer named Keeler, only 22 and fresh from Earth, started to object. "Sir, they're getting close, shouldn't we?" "No," Hale cut him off. "Let them come closer." The bridge went quiet again. Keeler swallowed and returned to his console with shaking hands, but he didn't argue. The scout ships ripped through the outer edges of the Union fleet, attacking smaller vessels like predators after prey. One ship's own AI turned against it, forcing the vessel to ram a fuel storage unit. The explosion was massive. The fleet started to break apart. Hale didn't move. "They can't see us," he told Ramey quietly. "Because we're not really here to them. We don't have the systems they hunt." He turned to the communications officer. "Open every frequency. All channels." The officer hesitated briefly, then switched on an old analog radio mounted to the floor. It hummed like a dying animal. Then Hale leaned toward the microphone. "To the Union fleet, you've been fighting this war wrong. We handed the enemy everything they needed to beat us. We built networks, installed smart computers, created digital systems to defend. But they turned all of it against us. We at the Vanguard don't run software. We run steel, willpower, and guns. Stand down. Let us finish this," silence answered him. Then a massive Urech vessel peeled away from the others, a twisted thing of metal and living tissue, with a glowing brain-like mass pulsing in its center. It leaked black acid as it moved, and its weapons glowed sickly green, but it didn't fire. It just scanned, confused. There were no digital systems to corrupt, no security walls to break through, no neural networks to invade, just raw, dead metal. That's when Hale whispered a single word: "Now." Down in the engine room, a technician threw the final lever. Cassandra came alive. The Vanguard began to vibrate, not shake, but hum like it was singing to frequencies no one else could hear. Lights dimmed. The air grew thick. The engines dropped into a deep, bone-shaking growl. Project Cassandra wasn't a gun at all. It was a gravitational implosion device, an illegal weapon pulled from old Earth experiments with dark energy. The ship had been rebuilt as a church around a buried god. Energy began pulling at the ship's front. Not light, not heat, just pure force. Reality itself started to bend. Hale gave the order. "Fire." The ship made no sound. The Cassandra device released its pulse and the world folded. The space between the Vanguard and the approaching Urech vessel twisted and snapped. The enemy ship didn't explode or melt. It simply vanished, erased. A spinning hole collapsed in on itself where it had been, like the universe was screaming. The remaining scout ships scattered in chaos, their coordinated assault falling apart. Every Union ship went silent. Everything stopped. The Vanguard floated alone in the void, surrounded by quiet and the faint echo of its kill. "My God," Ramey breathed. "We just wiped out a cruiser." "Not wiped," Knox said quietly. "Disconnected. Cassandra doesn't destroy with fire. It unravels the laws of physics that hold things in place. What it hits doesn't even leave wreckage." Hale leaned back in his chair, eyes unblinking. "We built Cassandra to be the last word in any war, and we were terrified to use it until right now." The communication channels flooded with panicked demands and questions from other commanders. Hale ignored them. He turned back to the stars. More Urech were already coming, hundreds, then thousands swarming into view. But now they didn't see the Vanguard as invisible. They saw it as prey, as a danger. "Get Cassandra ready again," Hale ordered. "We have 20 minutes before it can fire. After that, maybe 2 more shots before the reactor fails." Knox warned him. "If we push it too hard, we might blow the whole core." "We won't need more than a couple shots," Hale said. Then he did something strange. He smiled. They won a war. Now they've got one. The calm after that first shot felt almost unbearable. The Union fleet hung frozen, watching what looked like a miracle or something that shouldn't exist at all. On every screen, commanders stared at their sensors in shock. Even the Urech seemed to pause, their usual chaotic movements slowing as they recognized a threat that could actually fight back. Marcus Hale stood motionless on the bridge. "Status report?" he asked. Ramey was already checking the systems. "Hull intact. No breaches. Power system still strong. But Cassandra's furnace is burning hot. The cooling system is draining every backup we have." Knox stepped forward, removing a bloodied glove. "We can fire one more time, but not at full strength. Push it too fast and we rupture the reactor chamber. If that happens, we all die." Hale finished coldly. The crew stayed focused despite the tension. No one cheered. They all knew what Cassandra meant. Not victory. Just crossing a line that should never have been crossed. The tactical display lit up again. Hundreds of Urech vessels began converging, breaking away from other fights like nothing else mattered now. Keeler looked pale. Sir, they're forming a wall around us. Looks like 300+ ships making a ring. They want to contain us, Rami muttered. They're treating us like we're the infection now. Knox almost smiled. Because we are. Hale's jaw tightened. Good. Scared enemies make mistakes. He stepped closer to the display, studying the forming spiral of death. Most commanders would retreat, call for help, wait for backup. But Marcus Hale had never been that kind of commander. Take us straight into their formation, he ordered. Direct course, full engines. Ramey stared at him. You want to drive right into a 300-ship death trap? Yes. While Cassandra's not ready? Yes. She turned back to her console without another word. She didn't like it, but she trusted him. Keeler, Hale said. Patch me through to the fleet again. The young officer hesitated only a moment, then nodded. You're live, sir. Hale's voice was steady. This is Captain Marcus Hale of the Vanguard. We're attacking the swarm head-on. Don't interfere. Don't send help. Stay behind and protect yourselves. You're not designed for this. He cut the channel before protest could come through. The Vanguard lunged forward, its engines roaring like beasts from the planet's ancient past. The ship wasn't fast, but it was unstoppable, like an avalanche that didn't care what lay in its way. Ahead, the Urech moved with perfect inhuman precision. Crab-shaped destroyers, spider-built frigates, snake-like carriers, all folding around each other, creating layers of firepower. They were taking no chances. Hale stood silent on the bridge, eyes distant. His mind had gone to Earth, to the laboratories where Cassandra was born, to the warnings stamped in red across every file, to his brother screaming behind thick glass as the first test destroyed everything nearby and killed him. Cassandra was a weapon born from shame and grief, and now it was humanity's only hope. 2 minutes until we hit them, Ramey called out, voice controlled despite the pressure. The crew braced. Then the first wave struck from all angles. Scout ships rushed in from everywhere. Unlike Union vessels, the Vanguard had no automatic defense systems. Every gun needed a human finger on the trigger. Every kill had to be earned. The gunners came alive. Cannons roared. Targeting systems screamed. The air inside grew burning hot with each burst of kinetic ammunition, fired into the void like angry thunder. The old guns of Earth, polished and tuned to perfection, struck with accuracy even AI couldn't match. Enemy fighters exploded into clouds of metal and tissue. But there were too many. The Vanguard took damage. The hull groaned under the assault. Sparks showered across the bridge as a power line burst overhead. Emergency lights flickered on. Incoming on the port side, Knox yelled. Brace. A suicide drone smashed into the hull. The explosion shook every deck. For a moment, Hale saw stars through a crack in the ceiling. Seal that breach, he commanded. Redirect power from backup systems to the structural shields. Done, Ramey shouted, fingers flying across her board. Despite taking hit after hit, the Vanguard kept pushing forward. Then finally, the Cassandra system blinked green. Core stabilized, Knox reported. We're ready. Hale raised one hand in a simple gesture and the trigger was pulled. This time the result was different. Instead of targeting one ship, Cassandra spread its field wide. A low-power pulse, a ripple that warped gravity across a wide area ahead. Not strong enough to erase things, but strong enough to break them. Dozens of Urech vessels suddenly twisted and bent in space, their trajectories becoming violent and uncontrolled. Some crashed into each other. Others vanished in bursts of sickly green flame. A larger cruiser tore in half, its spine unraveling like thread in water. The swarm shattered. Chaos erupted. Ships collided. Others pulled back. The wall fell apart. Give us a clear path, Hale commanded. The crew obeyed. The Vanguard cut through the disorganized enemy like a brutal blade through flesh. Gunfire never stopped. The entire bridge felt like a battle zone. No shields, just raw force. The Vanguard didn't look beautiful while it killed. It looked like a monster. After what felt like hours but was only minutes, the immediate swarm pulled back. On the tactical screen, dozens of Union vessels began pushing forward, encouraged by what they'd witnessed. Fighters launched. Cruisers moved to attack. Humanity's shattered backbone had straightened. They'd just seen a ghost ship become something far worse. The bridge was torn apart. Smoke hung in the air. Blood stained one wall panel where a junior officer had been thrown hard enough to need medical attention. Hale leaned against the railing before the view screen, staring at the drifting wreckage of Urech vessels. We're not finished, he said quietly. Knox coughed, pulling off a glove soaked with blood. We just destroyed 200 ships. You certain about that? They were testing us, Hale replied. That wasn't their main force. That was reconnaissance. They're gathering data, changing tactics. He turned to Rami. Prepare for the next wave. She nodded. What about Cassandra? He looked at the readout. Core integrity at 62%. One final shot, that's everything we have left. Knox raised his eyebrows. Then what? Hale's voice dropped. Then we make them bleed the hard way. The bridge felt suffocating, thick with tension that the air could barely carry. Smoke from broken systems stuck to the walls, winding through vents, leaving a burnt smell everywhere. No one spoke. They didn't have to. Every person there understood what they were facing now. The tactical display flashed again. New contacts. Hundreds more. Organized this time. Confirmed, Rami said calmly despite the flickering screen. Another wave. Bigger formation, moving faster. How many? Hale asked. She paused. Best estimate, close to 1,000. Knox let out a low whistle. And we have one shot left. No, Hale said. We have one shot, a crew that refuses to quit and a ship too stubborn to die. Keeler looked up from his terminal, a burn mark on his left hand from the last power surge. Sir, incoming message from Admiral Vaoth of the Crescent Dawn, priority override. Mute it, Hale ordered. But Keeler hesitated. Sir, I think you should mute it, Hale repeated. Keeler reluctantly turned off the sound. Hale knew exactly what the Admiral wanted. Retreat, regroup, wait for Union support. The leadership had never trusted the Vanguard. They only tolerated it now because it was winning. Rami checked her station. The second wave arrives in 3 minutes, but they're not acting like the last swarm. No chaotic swarming. They're forming rings. Knox frowned. Containment rings? Defensive spheres, she said, squinting at the screen. They're protecting something. Hale moved to the display, crossing his arms. His eyes traced the pattern. Multiple layers rotating, shielding something in the center. Inside that core sat a single massive ship, dwarfing anything the Urech had sent before. Is that their flagship? Keeler leaned closer. No, Hale muttered quietly. That's their queen. The Urech didn't have leaders like humans did. They had command centers, biomachines that controlled the entire swarm. The thing at the center wasn't just a warship. It was a mind, a floating brain the size of a Union capital city wrapped in metal, crackling with so much data it glowed like lightning under its skin. That's our target, Hale said. Knox stared at him like he'd gone insane. You want to fire Cassandra at that? It's surrounded by 1,000 ships. That's exactly why we need to do it. Rami gave a slow nod. If we kill it, the rest might break down, lose coordination, turn into animals again. They won't collapse, Hale said, but they'll become stupid. They'll start fighting like beasts, and we know how to beat animals. Knox walked to the wall panel and entered the override code for Cassandra. The display lit up with warnings. Final charge available. Core stability at 58%. System status unpredictable. Launch sequence not advised. He looked over his shoulder. We fire this, we might crack the ship in half. We're not here to survive, Hale said. We're here to finish what Earth started. He opened the internal communication channel, speaking directly to the crew, not to the Union fleet. This is Captain Hale. We have one final shot with Cassandra. One chance to take out the Urech command brain. We hit it, we break their control over this entire region. We miss, we all die. He let that sink in for a moment. We didn't build this ship to be fast. We didn't build it to be sleek. We built it to be angry. If we're going down, we go down fighting. One by one, voices came back over the internal systems. Engineering ready. Weapons ready. Medical secured and locked down. Deck 7 sealed and reinforced. Sir, we're with you. Hale nodded slowly. All right. Let's aim for the Queen. The Vanguard began moving again, slow but relentless. Every section of its hull was burned. Multiple compartments were sealed by emergency bulkheads. 2 weapon systems had been melted to slag. But it kept advancing. The Urech noticed as their defensive rings shifted, adjusting when they realized the Vanguard was pushing forward. Some outer ships peeled away to intercept. The targeting system locked on. Queen node is in our firing path in 80 seconds, Rami said. Distance 15 kilometers and closing. Too far, Hale said. We need to get inside their shell. Knox looked at him. You want to drive the ship straight through 1,000 enemy vessels? Hale smiled without humor. Yeah, and if they don't like it, they should try harder to stop us. The next 60 seconds were pure hell. Urech ships dove at them from every direction. The gunners were merciless, destroying anything within range, but enemies kept coming. Explosions rocked the ship. Damage reports poured in constantly. Hull breach on Deck 4. Fire in the reactor backup room. Portside communications completely dead. Still they moved closer. Then the order came. Fire Cassandra. Everything on the ship went dark. Lights flickered once, then died completely. Even emergency power cut out for a full 2 seconds. The Vanguard became silent and empty. Then the pulse released. No sound, just gravity screaming. The space between the Vanguard and the Queen node folded inward. Not a beam, not a blast, but a collapse of physical laws that burst outward in a shockwave too impossible for even physics to describe. It tore through the Urech defenses like paper. Dozens of ships caught in the spatial backlash twisted and warped, their hulls stretching and snapping like rubber. The Queen's shielding flared bright, pulsed once, then buckled. Its core began to crack like an egg under pressure. Biomechanical skin peeled back. Fluid shot into space like arterial spray. Electrical surges flared across its frame. Then it imploded completely. Everything went white. When the bridge lights returned, most of the crew lay on the floor, thrown from their positions. Sparks fell like snow from the ceiling. But the screen showed only one thing. The Queen node was gone, and the Urech were scattering in all directions. Ships broke formation. Some fled, others drifted aimlessly. Their coordination had vanished. Hale's gamble had worked. The Union fleet began advancing, pressing the advantage. Thousands of voices across space erupted in celebration. But the Vanguard had paid the cost. Status? Hale asked, coughing. Knox helped Raimi to her feet. She had a cut above her eye, but waved him off. Cassandra is finished, she said. The core housing melted completely. The main reactor is becoming unstable. If we don't shut it down, we lose the ship. Knox finished grimly. Hale didn't hesitate.
Evacuate. What?
Raimi blinked. We can still hold her together. You have 5 minutes, Hale snapped. Get the crew to the escape pods. That's an order. What about you? Keeler asked. Hale looked out at the wreckage of the Queen node. I have unfinished business in engineering. Raimi stepped forward, voice low. You don't have to die for this. Hale met her eyes. We all died when Earth built Cassandra. I'm just cleaning up the mess. Alarms wailed like dying animals as Hale walked through the burning hallways of the Vanguard. Every step echoed with metal groaning, gas vents hissing, and electrical sparks snapping like tiny whips in the smoke-filled corridors. The ship was coming apart from the inside. Power relays overloaded. Backup containment rings blew apart. The main reactor, already pushed beyond its limits, was spiraling toward critical. Deep inside, the Cassandra core, warped and cracked, was bleeding radiation and ticking like a bomb. Hale passed 2 crew members dragging an injured technician toward the escape pods. They froze when they saw him. Captain, are you— Go, he ordered, waving them forward. Get moving. But sir, go, move. They didn't argue, they ran. Hale continued toward engineering, coughing as the smoke got thicker. His lungs were on fire. Sweat ran down his back even though the ship's climate systems were failing. Circuits flickered, sparked, and died. But he kept walking. He wasn't afraid of death anymore. He'd made peace with that long ago, back when Project Cassandra was first approved, before his brother died testing the prototype, before Earth buried the weapon and swore to never speak its name again. He'd broken that promise for survival, for victory, for humanity. The main reactor room was a furnace when he arrived. The bulkhead had partially collapsed, forcing him to crawl under twisted beams. Inside, red warning lights strobed constantly. Radiation alarms screamed in his ears. The massive cylindrical core at the center pulsed erratically, its heat shields groaning under the strain. And in front of it, desperately working at a burned control console, was Knox. Hale froze. You're supposed to be gone, he said angrily. Knox didn't look up. And let you play the hero alone? Hell no. You disobeyed a direct order. Yep. Knox tore a melted panel from the wall and jammed a power bypass tool into the system's innards. Sue me later. Hale stormed over, furious. You'll die down here. Knox grinned through gritted teeth. So will you. This way we can argue about it the whole way to hell. Despite everything, Hale cracked a small smile. What's the plan? Knox explained quickly. The core is cascading out of control. Can't shut it down, but I can eject it. Eject it? Hale's eyes widened. Into open space? Exactly. We dump the whole thing. Cassandra's fused into the main reactor. But if I can override the magnetic clamps and disconnect the feed lines, we can throw the entire core chamber out the side launch bay. Hale nodded slowly. The explosion won't kill us? Knox looked at him. It might, Hale grunted. So, business as usual. The two men worked side by side, prying open manual control boxes and overriding safety systems that were already fried anyway. Hale's hands shook, whether from radiation exposure or pure exhaustion he couldn't say. Every few seconds the ship lurched again as its systems protested their own destruction. You ever regret any of this? Knox asked suddenly. Hale didn't look up. What, taking command? Flying the ship? Using Cassandra? Hale paused, staring at a blinking red light that told him they had less than 7 minutes before total failure. I regret it every day, he said finally. But I'd do it again. Knox nodded. Me too. Suddenly the core gave a deep rattling groan. Inner casings began spinning out of sync. Heat surged violently. We're out of time, Knox shouted, then cut the clamps. Hale pulled a lever hard enough to dislocate his shoulder. He didn't care. Alarms doubled in volume. A massive crash echoed as the magnetic seals around the core deactivated one at a time. Knox slammed his fist into a manual eject switch, forcing it to move. Metal screamed against metal. The deck shook violently. Then, with a sound like a deep exhale, the core detached. There was a moment of silence and then a violent jolt as the launch bay behind the core fired the chamber out into space. One final burial for the weapon they should never have unleashed. The core floated for a second, glowing like a dying star. Then it detonated. From the bridge and across the entire fleet. They would later describe it as a second sunrise. A silent, blinding ball of white-blue fire that lit up the entire battlefield. Every ship turned their sensors toward the explosion, certain the Vanguard had gone with it. But when the light faded, the Vanguard was still there. Crippled, scarred, barely alive, but still existing. Inside engineering, Hale and Knox were thrown against a wall by the shock wave. A pipe burst above them, pouring coolant onto the deck. Flames danced across the floor. The heat was unbearable. Now that was a send-off, Knox muttered, coughing blood into his hand. Hale looked up, seeing only flickering lights and smoke. Status. Knox glanced at the one working screen. We're holding. No chain reaction. Core is gone. Ship's crippled, but she's still breathing. Hale slumped against the wall. Laughter bubbled up despite the pain in his ribs. We did it, he whispered. A soft buzz came from his earpiece, somehow still working. A voice came through, repeated and distorted. Vanguard. This is Admiral Vaoth of the Crescent Dawn. Is anyone alive aboard? Hale tapped the channel. This is Captain Hale, still here, barely. Good God, came Vaoth's voice, half amazed, half disbelief. We saw the blast. Thought you were finished. We're moving to retrieve survivors. Copy that, Hale said. But bring medical. Lots of it. A long pause followed. You destroyed their queen node, Vaoth said finally. The swarms are in full retreat. The tide has turned because of you. Hale looked around the destroyed engineering deck. Bodies, blood scars on every wall. No, he said quietly. It turned because of them, the crew. All I did was point the ship in the right direction. The channel went dark. Signal was weak but strong enough to confirm rescue was coming. Knox slumped beside him. So what happens now? Hale closed his eyes, listening to the silence. The ship was quiet now, wounded, resting. Now we let the Union take the credit. They'll rebuild, give out medals, rewrite history to suit them. And us, he paused. We fade away. Become legend. Knox nodded slowly. Just how you like it. Above them, emergency power flickered to life, barely. Just enough to run the life support systems. The Vanguard, the ship everyone mocked, the slow relic, the forgotten machine, had become a symbol. Not of perfection, but of refusal to die. Marcus Hale sat back against the wall and waited for the medical teams to arrive. He didn't know if they'd rebuild the ship or scrap what was left. But he knew one thing for certain. The galaxy would never laugh at Earth again. Not after this. Not after the Vanguard. 3 days later, Marcus Hale woke up in a medical ward aboard the Crescent Dawn. White walls, cold blankets, quiet machines, the soft hiss of oxygen systems. It was sterile and pristine. Nothing like the familiar chaos of the Vanguard. His left arm was wrapped in a regeneration sleeve. His ribs were taped tight. Dried blood matted his beard. His entire body ached like something had chewed him up and spit him out, but he was breathing. The door slid open softly. A tall woman in a formal uniform stepped inside, carrying a digital tablet like a weapon. Admiral Vaoth. She stopped at the foot of his bed, arms crossed. "You look terrible," she said, though respect rang in her voice more than mockery. Hale coughed. "You should see what's left of the Vanguard." Vaoth didn't smile, but something in her expression flickered like she wanted to. "We pulled 97 survivors from your ship. 54 are wounded, some critically. Your second officer, Rami, is in recovery. She held your bridge together after you left." "Of course she did," Hale said softly. "She's better than I could ever be." Vaoth took a seat beside his bed and held out the tablet. "We're making a report. The leadership wants information. Analysis of Cassandra, your strategy, command structure. I'm supposed to get everything from you." Hale didn't take the tablet. "I'm sure you'll make it sound polished," he said, "the heroic. Clean enough for a ceremony." "You're right," Vaoth replied. "They're already calling you the ghost captain of Vega Prime. Someone leaked video of your ship coming out of the Queen explosion. There are posters being made. Songs, too." Hale muttered, "Just what I always wanted, fame." She leaned forward, her voice hardening. "But underneath all that, they're frightened, Marcus." He looked at her. Really looked. The stern face, the exhausted eyes. This wasn't victory she was feeling. This was someone calculating risk and understanding that a boundary had been crossed. "Cassandra was never approved," she continued. "It was banned for good reason. You revived it, deployed it, and used it against a species we don't fully understand. That terrifies them." "Good," Hale said. "They should be terrified. We begged for help when Earth was struggling. We asked for scraps and no one answered. So we built something that scares us. They laughed when we sent the Vanguard, said it was a coffin with engines." He leaned closer, eyes hard. "But that coffin just opened the heart of a swarm the Union couldn't slow down in 100 battles. So yeah, they should be scared of what humanity can do when we stop asking permission." Vaoth said nothing for a long time. Then she stood. "You're being transferred back to Earth. High Command wants a private debriefing and probably wants you buried somewhere you can't embarrass them anymore." Hale raised an eyebrow. "I thought I was the hero." "You were," she said. "But heroes are dangerous when they don't follow the rules." She walked toward the door. "Heroes like that end up disappeared." Hale watched her go, the soft swish of the door closing behind her. Heroes are dangerous. He already knew that. That's why he'd kept Cassandra hidden all those years. That's why he'd taken command of the Vanguard in the first place. Not because it was the best ship, but because it was the only one they'd let him disappear inside of, and now they wanted to make him vanish again. 2 days later, he was escorted to a secure transport shuttle by 2 silent Union officers. No celebration, no ceremony, just cold metal hallways, a tight-lipped pilot, and a window seat that wouldn't open. As they approached Earth, the planet looked fragile somehow, almost breakable. After everything, Hale couldn't see beauty in those blue oceans or green continents. All he saw were targets. All he felt was work left unfinished. The moment the shuttle landed, he was taken underground. Deep beneath the Earth Defense Command Center in Geneva, past sterile hallways and armed guards. He was escorted into a circular room where 12 council members waited behind a curved desk. No names, no introduction, just hours of questions. They wanted everything. How he'd accessed Cassandra, who helped rebuild it, why he'd taken the risk, whether he understood the diplomatic damage from his actions. They hinted he might face trial for using banned weapons, endangering the fleet, possibly even war crimes. Hale answered the same way every time. "I did what you were too afraid to do, and we're still alive because of it." Some council members shifted uncomfortably. One stared at him with pure hatred. Another, an older man with a scar running down his neck, simply nodded slightly as if silently approving. Finally, they dismissed him. He was taken to a holding room and left alone in silence. Hours passed, maybe days, until the door opened again. Not guards this time. Rami stepped through, still bruised, one arm in a sling, but her posture was unbroken and her eyes burned with quiet intensity. "They're not charging you," she said. Hale raised his eyebrows. "Surprising?" "They wanted to," she replied, "but they can't risk the backlash. You're a hero now. Too many people saw the broadcast. The Vanguard has followers everywhere." "Wonderful," he muttered. "Soon they'll start naming drinks after us." Rami stepped closer. "They're grounding you. You're officially retired. The Vanguard is being scrapped. They don't want another Cassandra, and they don't want you commanding another warship." Hale paused, then slowly nodded. "Good. Let them be afraid." Rami studied him carefully. So that's it? He shook his head. Not even close. Outside the facility, the media had already begun speculating about Hale's fate. Rumors spread endlessly. Was he imprisoned, executed, banished? But Marcus Hale wasn't any of those things. He simply vanished. Officially, he resigned peacefully, quietly stepping down from service. The Union released a statement thanking him for his extraordinary service and issued a commemorative medal he never bothered collecting. But off the record, he went dark. Underground rumors claimed he was working with fringe Earth military units, designing new Black Ops vessels, quietly building a second Cassandra that the Union wouldn't know about until it was already too late. Nothing was ever confirmed. But the Union watched every signal, every whisper, every movement, and in distant colonies when people told stories they spoke about the Vanguard, the slow ship, the forgotten crew, the captain who carried a forbidden weapon into the darkest places and came back alive. They never told it clean. They told it the way it deserved to be remembered. A ghost ship. A nightmare. A warning. And out in the void beyond the stars, where new enemies were gathering and old conspiracies were hatching, those who once mocked Earth now listened carefully whenever the name Marcus Hale came up. Because they learned something the hard way. Humanity doesn't win by being honorable. Humanity wins by surviving. The shipyard on Proxima B5 wasn't on any official maps. Buried in a dead zone between surveyed space, it didn't show up on star charts and no beacons marked its location. It was a skeleton of salvaged technology and ambitious engineers. Raw scaffolding, unregistered transport ships, and technicians too brilliant and too exiled for Union work. It was exactly where Marcus Hale belonged. He stood at the edge of a construction platform, arms folded, staring at the enormous frame being built below. Welders moved like insects across the black hull. Sparks danced through the artificial gravity and fizzled out mid-air. Massive ribs of reinforced alloy stretched into space, slowly forming the skeleton of something that, if successful, wouldn't just match the Vanguard. It would surpass her in every way. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. Rami had cut her hair short since Geneva, looked sharper now, like she'd shed her uniform along with her patience for procedure. "You're really doing this," she said, stepping up beside him. "Building a new one." Hale didn't turn. "Not a new Vanguard. That ship was born from desperation. This one is born from intent." Rami raised an eyebrow. "They'll find out eventually." "Let them," Hale said. "I'm not hiding this time." She studied the massive frame. "It's bigger. 30% larger," Hale confirmed. "Slower," she added. Hale smirked. "Twice as fast," she whistled quietly. "What about the weapon?" Hale's smile faded. "It's not Cassandra." "Good," she said quickly. "That thing was worse," he finished. Rami went silent. After the Vanguard, the galaxy had fallen into uneasy quiet. The Urech retreat had held for now, but even scattered across forgotten space, their presence could still be felt on the edges of civilized regions. They weren't done, just confused, cut off from their hive intelligence. More animal now, yes, but not harmless. And the Union, in typical fashion, had declared victory and moved on. "They think they've won," Hale said as the hull below lit up with fusion welding. "They think the war is finished because the enemy stopped marching in organized formations." Rami shook her head. "You sound like someone who wants the war to return." "I don't," Hale said. "But I've lived long enough to know it always does." She didn't argue. She knew the truth. After a pause, she asked, "And what's the name?" Hale looked down at the ship, still skeletal, still silent, but already radiating the same slow, burning rage that made the Vanguard legendary. "The Gravedigger," he said. Rami's eyes narrowed. "Subtle?" "It's not meant to be subtle," Hale replied, turning to face her. "I'm not building another shield. I'm building a blade, one that cuts before they even realize they're bleeding." Rami crossed her arms. "The Union will come looking." "Eventually," Hale admitted. "But by the time they figure out what we're making, they'll need us again." She hesitated, then spoke quietly. "You know I'm with you, right? Not because of the weapon, not even because of the war." "Then why?" Hale asked. "Because when the galaxy calls us monsters, you're the only one who never flinches," she said. Hale didn't answer. He didn't need to. They looked out again as the frame of the Gravedigger shuddered, and the first signs of its central power spine activated. A ripple of blue energy passed through its ribs. This wasn't a defensive vessel. This was a message. Somewhere far beyond Union control, a pirate broadcast suddenly flickered to life on dead military frequencies, bouncing between defunct relay satellites and buried transponders no one had used in ages. The signal was raw, grainy, just a voice speaking over soft static. They buried the ship that saved them. They silenced the crew who stared into darkness without blinking. But we remember. When the next swarm comes, when the stars bleed again, we won't wait for permission. We'll wait for the ghost because Hale isn't gone. He's sharpening the blade. It ran for less than 30 seconds, and it was enough to trigger warnings across Union intelligence. They traced the source. They couldn't find it. They questioned Hale's former crew members. Most had disappeared. Some had taken new identities in outer colonies. Others simply refused to speak. Something was happening in the shadows. On a mining outpost near the Thalon Expanse, a group of mercenaries sat around a communications console, replaying the broadcast repeatedly. "You think it's real?" one asked, voice uncertain. An older man at a corner table didn't answer immediately. He was missing 2 fingers and wore an old flight jacket with a faded Vanguard insignia stitched above the heart. He sipped from a tin cup. "If it is," he said finally, "you'll want to be on the right side of history." The others fell silent. The legend was growing again. Not from propaganda, not from Union broadcasts, but from whispers. From people who remembered what it felt like to lose, then saw what happened when a slow, stubborn ship refused to follow the rules and won anyway. Back at Proxima B5, the Gravedigger's interior chambers were being sealed. Unlike the Vanguard, it didn't have an AI, but it didn't need one. Its systems were mostly mechanical with quantum backups, able to vanish off most sensors by mimicking background radiation. It had hull plating that bent light not perfectly, not invisibly, but enough to make it difficult to track or follow. Its weapon system, codenamed Threnody, was still classified. Even most of Hale's engineers didn't understand it, but they knew what it wasn't. Not a shield. Not a cannon. It was consequence. Raimi stood at the new bridge, staring at blank consoles. Not activated yet. Not completely. She ran her hand along cold steel. Not touchscreen. Not voice-controlled. Just hard buttons and switches. A machine designed for human hands, not artificial minds. She smiled. "We're going to terrify them," she whispered. Behind her, Marcus Hale entered the chamber. He looked older now. Not broken, but tempered, like a blade that had been in the forge too long. "How long until she's ready?" he asked. Raimi checked the schedule. 2 months for structural completion. 6 more months to wire the command systems and test the power core. Hale nodded, and the crew already volunteering. "Veterans, exiles, some aliens?" He raised an eyebrow. "Aliens?" "Some of them respect what we did," she explained. "Fear it too." "Good," Hale said. "Fear keeps cowards out of the way." He stepped forward, placed a hand on the captain's chair. "I won't make the same mistakes this time," he said quietly. "Neither will I," Raimi replied. They stood in silence for a long moment, listening to the construction below. The Gravedigger was coming together, not fast, not cleanly, but steadily, relentlessly, like the humans who would command her, like the war they both knew hadn't truly ended. Space was never silent. Not really. It had its own language, understood only by those who learned to listen. The ping of deep sensors, the throb of pulse engines, the static noise of cosmic radiation, and out near the edge of the Scutum sector, beyond any official charts or convoy routes, the darkness began to speak again. The Urech weren't gone. They had been wounded, yes, stunned, confused, fractured, but not destroyed. Without the Queen node, they had devolved into a hive without direction. Hundreds of scattered warships drifting across forgotten regions. Some starved, some fought each other, some simply powered down, dormant and waiting. But one group, one small cluster, had endured. Only 17 ships, all scarred and warped from gravitational damage inflicted by the Vanguard. But they hadn't deteriorated. They had changed. They had adapted. In the heart of a dead moon orbiting a collapsed binary star, the remaining Urech swarm had fused itself into something new. Metal folded into organic tissue, memory into pure instinct, and in the hollowed-out caverns of the moon, they built a new command unit. Not a Queen node, but something older, purer, a warden. No exposed brain matter, no dependency on hyperspace command logic. The warden didn't coordinate. It directed, a single intelligence hardwired to one purpose: identify the threat, hunt the threat, erase the threat. And the threat had a name: Marcus Hale, On Proxima B5, the gravedigger was nearly finished. The hull was sealed. Power ran through her frame like blood through muscle. Fusion lines glowed deep crimson, steady and hot. Unlike the Vanguard, she wasn't built from salvage. Every inch was intentional. Every system designed with only one goal in mind: survival at any cost. Her weapon, Threnody, remained locked. Only Hale and one engineer, a silent specialist from Sirius named Gavax, knew what it could do. The crew speculated endlessly. Some said it was a miniaturized Cassandra. Others whispered about antimatter cannons or a subspace virus that killed enemy ships by unraveling their computing systems. Raimi knew better than to ask. If it was dangerous enough for Hale to keep classified, it was dangerous enough to work. "Hull seals are holding," she reported. "Reactor 3 finished testing. We've got our complete crew, 112 people including 8 from old Union Black Ops." Hale stood at the new bridge, gazing at the main viewport. The stars looked sharper now, almost hostile. Not because they'd changed, but because he had. "Time to fly," he said. The gravedigger undocked with a low vibration that passed through the entire hull like a whisper. No cheering, no countdown, just silence and purpose. They drifted into open space. Engine signatures minimal, tactical signatures masked. No Federation beacons, no identification pings. Ghost ship again. But this time they weren't limping into battle. They were hunting. Days passed. The gravedigger ghosted through deep space regions. Hale had a route, built from sensor anomalies, faint radiation traces, and intercepted fragments of ancient Urech code. It was like chasing the shadow of a creature that no longer bled, but still left footprints in the void. And then they found it. A single planet, lifeless, orbiting 2 dead stars. No heat, no life. But sensor readings were wrong. Gravity fluctuated near the surface. Magnetic fields twisted violently. Deep beneath the crust, something pulsed. The warden. "Prepare Threnody," Hale ordered. Raimi gave him a look. "You're sure?" "If we wait," Hale said, "we lose our advantage. We hit it before it becomes another queen." Knox, who had rejoined under a different name, ran a hand over his shaved head. "This isn't like Vega Prime, that was a swarm. This feels like something worse." Hale looked at them. "Then we bury it before it hatches." The gravedigger descended into orbit, silent and invisible. Threnody's targeting core was activated. And for the first time since construction began, the crew saw what it really was. Not a beam, not a cannon. It was a dimensional inversion lattice, a weapon that collapsed possibility into reality. Where Cassandra had erased matter by destabilizing gravity, Threnody reached into parallel timelines and imported entropy. Simply put, it killed things by forcing them to suffer every death they could possibly have all at once. It didn't just break ships. It erased futures. Target locked. Gavax signed silently. Raimi gave final confirmation with a nod. "You're the captain," Hale whispered. "Fire." Threnody released nothing. No sound, no glow, not even a tremor. But deep on the dead planet, in the caverns where the warden pulsed, where 17 hybrid Urech ships lay fused together, the ground began to shake violently. Metal screamed. The AI howled. Every possible malfunction, every flaw, every theoretical weakness hit simultaneously. Circuits burned, code degraded, control systems ran paradox loops. And in one final impossible moment, the warden became nothing. Not debris, not wreckage, just absence. On the gravedigger's bridge, the crew stared at the tactical screen. No explosion, no shrapnel, just silence. "It's gone," Rami breathed. "No," Hale corrected. "It never was, but they were too late." The warden had sent a signal. Not a call for aid, but a final broadcast. Every scattered Urech node heard it. Across the void, ships once dormant stirred. Not awakened, but provoked. Not intelligent, but enraged. And they came. Thousands of them. Old vessels, broken ones, spiked, melted, fused. Ships that had wandered for decades, reassembled by pure instinct and rage, powered by raw nuclear hearts and dripping with synthetic flesh. The swarm didn't speak. It screamed, and it came straight for the gravedigger. The battle wasn't elegant. The gravedigger had no backup. No Union fleet, no reinforcements, just one ship, a dozen guns, and an untested weapon. They fought like humans always did. Dirty, fast, willing to burn everything to win. Coil guns tore holes in armor plating. Defense grids lit up like fireworks. Hull plating melted. Fire spilled into crew quarters. Systems collapsed. One by one, the gravedigger's outer decks began to fail, but the core held. And Threnody, though depleted, had one final charge remaining. Hale stared at the incoming swarm closing fast, nearly surrounding them. He turned to Raimi. "Do it." No precision targeting, she warned. You'll catch us in the collapse. I know. He turned to the crew, many bloodied, some missing limbs, all still standing. Thank you, he said simply. Then he gripped the override lever and pulled. The last charge of Threnody detonated at point-blank range. Every Urech ship within 10 kilometers ceased existing. No explosion, no fire, just a wave of sheer impossibility. Where 1,000 screaming vessels had surged moments before, there was now quiet. They found the gravedigger 3 weeks later, drifting, powerless, appearing lifeless. The rescue team from a distant trading convoy found 42 survivors in sealed compartments. Everyone else was gone, either killed in the battle or taken by Threnody's collapse. Among the missing was Marcus Hale. No body, no signal, just his final recorded message left in the ship's systems. If you're hearing this, then I failed to die properly, which means you have a choice now. Tell the Union to rebuild its ceremonial fleets or tell them to start making monsters again, because the galaxy doesn't respect tradition. It respects consequence. The recording ended. And in the years that followed, legend filled the emptiness. Stories of a ship called the Gravedigger, spotted drifting near battlefields just before the enemy vanished. Whispers of a captain with dead eyes and a voice like rust who asked no questions and gave no mercy. Some claimed it was ghost technology. Others believed Hale somehow survived, somehow still hunting. But every admiral, every soldier who understood fear in the darkness, told the same story when they spoke about it. Never underestimate a human warship, especially the slow ones, because they don't come to fight, they come to end things forever.